Careers may be ruined in the blink of an eye in Hollywood, a place where the unknown can become legendary. Debra Winger, a gifted actress and three-time Oscar candidate who was turned down by Hollywood, is the best person to comprehend this. She didn't struggle with drugs, breach the law, or get involved in any scandals. Her strong personality and direct honesty, which Hollywood at the time disapproved of in a female performer, were the only things against her. That wasn't all, though. She once experienced a brain hemorrhage that left her blind, crippled on one side, and almost prevented her from ever being in front of a camera again. She returned, took the world by storm, and then abruptly vanished at the height of her fame. And now, she has been out of the spotlight in Hollywood for about 30 years, but when she has returned, the audience is shocked by how different she looks. Debra Winger left Hollywood, but why? What has happened to her? And why are people so shocked by the way she looks now? This is a journey of tragedy, sorrow, and the unwavering fortitude of a lady who refused to be defeated. It's not simply about a once bright star. Prepare yourself. Because what you're going to hear will alter your perception of Hollywood forever. On May 16, 1955, Mary Debra Winger was born in Cleveland, Ohio, into a Jewish family with ancestry from the Russian Empire and Austria-Hungary. She had been living between two identities since birth. Her parents gave her the name Deborah, but her maternal grandmother gave her the name Mary, which has strong Jewish connotations. Deborah Paget, a Hollywood actress, served as inspiration. There are two routes, two universes, and two names. A never-ending conflict between the desire for a creative life and family tradition. Her family relocated to California when she was 5 years old. Although her parents wanted her to lead a peaceful, secure life, she harbored an unquenchable yearning to perform on stage. However, acting was not regarded as a serious career route in an Orthodox Jewish home. She kept her dreams hidden deep inside and dared not share them with anyone. She secretly trained herself by watching old movies repeatedly and practicing in front of the mirror. Because of her remarkable intelligence, Debra skipped classes and completed high school at the age of 15, when other girls were still deciding what they wanted to do with their lives. But she took a more sensible path and enrolled in college to study criminology rather than pursuing her artistic goals. Winger had a part-time job at a California amusement park prior to turning 17. She assumed it was simply another typical day. She was given the responsibility of driving a small truck with Christmas play materials. Suddenly, a priceless costume fell from the truck. She instinctively lunged for it, and the car swerved just as she did, hurling her violently from the car. She was engulfed in darkness. She found herself in a hospital bed as she opened her eyes. One side of her body was immobile. There was nothing for her to see. Her doctors determined that she had suffered serious brain trauma, which resulted in partial paralysis and temporary blindness due to hemorrhaging. Months came after weeks. Her world turned into a place of despair and darkness. Her full recovery was not guaranteed by the doctors. She may never see him again. She may never be able to walk correctly. The loss of vision and movement, however, was hardly the most horrifying thing. It was the dream she had lost. Winger had plenty of time to reflect during those long, quiet days. What if she lost her ability to walk? But what if she was blind? What if that was the end of her life? She became aware for the first time that she didn't want to have a typical existence. And she made a choice one day that would alter everything. I will sacrifice everything to pursue acting if I am able to walk in sight again. It was more than just a pledge. It was an oath to fate itself and to herself. Winger started to miraculously improve, defying all medical expectations. Her vision came back. She was a different girl, yet her body gradually began to move again. Her college career ended abruptly. She left behind the secure life her family had planned for her. And she flung herself into Hollywood with all of her might, driven by the need to survive. Like a fighter who had just escaped death, Debra Winger made her Hollywood debut. Are you curious in how Debra Winger got her first part? How did she go from being unknown to becoming one of the biggest stars in Hollywood? Watch this space for the next section. Winger, like a lot of young actors, had trouble establishing herself. The most prominent of her early television roles was that of Diana's younger sister in Wonder Woman, 1975. But it wasn't television that gave her her big break. It was from a movie she'd prefer to forget. Winger played a part in the softcore exploitation movie Slumber Party 57 in 1976, which she saw as only a means of surviving. There was no choice. For a young actress who had little in her hands, it was a terrible move. She evaded any inquiries on this movie after she rose to fame. She refused to respond when asked the name of her debut movie in an interview on Inside the Actors Studio. Winger never denied her history, but she also didn't want to reflect on it. She came to Hollywood to demonstrate that she was a legitimate actress, not to serve as a cheap symbol. Her upcoming movies? French Postcards, 1979, and Thank God It's Friday, 1978, didn't do anything to further her career. No one recognized Winger's name, and he remained a passing face. In contrast to the delicate female leads that Hollywood loved, she was perceived as being too forceful and sharp-edged. She realized she just needed one shot to change Hollywood's perception of her, so she didn't let that deter her. And that opportunity presented itself in the most surprising manner. Urban Cowboy, a movie that will revolutionize the contemporary cowboy genre, was looking for a female lead in 1980. Sissy Spacek was originally supposed to play the part, but the Carrie, 1976 actress declined. Among those who auditioned, Michelle Pfeiffer, who was still unknown at the time, was promptly chosen by Hollywood as a replacement. Then Winger entered, though. She wasn't picked first. She possessed something that no one else had, but she wasn't the second or even the third. She was impossible to ignore because of her unbridled presence, crazy energy, and raw passion. James Bridges, the director, saw her promise right away and threatened to abandon the project if the company didn't cast her. Bridges believed in Debra Winger, even when Hollywood did not. And Winger made Hollywood bow down when Urban Cowboy came theaters. She lived the role rather than merely playing it. She was more than simply the on-screen partner of John Travolta. She emerged as the newest sexual icon in America. More significantly, though, she demonstrated that she was a formidable opponent. There have always been plenty of attractive ladies in Hollywood. However, how many could evoke strong emotions in viewers with each look, gesture, and conversational phrase like Winger did? Winger's career wasn't the only one saved by Urban Cowboy's success. Her ability to direct her own course in life was something that few Hollywood actors possessed, but it also made her a nuisance to the business. Enter Debra Winger's heyday, when she not only achieved success but also sparked some of the most intense conflicts of her professional life. She immediately rose to prominence as one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors after Urban Cowboy, not just because of her powerful, wild beauty but also because of her unvarnished, unafraid, and eerily authentic performances. She wasn't a princess from a fairy tale, rather, she was a storm that was prepared to breach all barriers. However, the struggles behind the scenes intensified with every movie that boosted her reputation, making her one of the most divisive personalities in the business. Winger's breakthrough performance came in the 1982 movie An Officer and a Gentleman. One of the most romantic scenes in movie history was when Richard Gere, dressed in his Navy uniform, carried her out of the factory. However, that relationship was limited to the screen. The truth was that she and Gere hated each other too much to conceal it. Winger once compared performing with Gere like performing in front of a brick wall. Every day on set felt like an unspoken battle because they lacked connection and chemistry. Although the movie was a huge hit and she received her first Oscar nomination, it also cemented her image as challenging, stubborn, and brutally honest to the point of alienation. What transpired on the set of Terms of Endearment, 1983, was a full-blown conflict if her conflict with Richard Gere was just a case of two actors not getting along. This time, Winger was at odds with a Hollywood legend rather than a male co-star. MacLaine, Shirley. MacLaine was a seasoned star with an unwavering presence who was a symbol of classic Hollywood. On the other hand, Winger broke all the rules and was the rebellious force of a new generation. It was like two opposing storms crashing into each other when these two strong-willed women met. They quarreled about everything, including professionalism on set and acting techniques. The climax of the anxiety was when Winger allegedly farted in front of MacLaine and declared it her stamp on the set in a moment of heedless defiance. Winger received her second Oscar nomination for Terms of Endearment, which ultimately turned out to be a masterpiece. However, Shirley MacLaine prevailed. MacLaine famously said, "I deserve this," as she took her prize. Her words were rife with irony, as though to declare her triumph in their rivalry in real life as much as on TV. Regardless of their enmity, their off-screen tension undoubtedly contributed to a memorable cinematic experience that affected millions of people. Few people are aware that Winger made an unexpected contribution to another iconic movie that same year. She was E.T. Swift's uncredited voice in E.T. The Alien. 1982, she accepted Steven Spielberg's invitation to try out the alien's voice, but she never made a public statement about it, possibly because she didn't want to be known for her behind-the-scenes work. But Winger's untamed personality unnerved Hollywood. She consistently rejected important scripts that other actresses would have pushed for because she didn't want to play traditional roles. According to some sources, she missed too many possibilities because of her romantic relationship with Bob Kerrey, the governor of Nebraska, who had no connections to Hollywood but had an irresistible attraction to her. Others conjectured about health problems. One thing was obvious, regardless of the true cause. Few people had the guts to follow Debra Winger's path, which was her own. She continued to star in high-caliber movies when the 1990s rolled around, including The Sheltering Sky, 1990, and Shadowlands, 1993, the latter of which earned her a third Oscar nomination. Winger's brilliance in Hollywood was less dazzling than it once was, despite her indisputable talent. With its strict standards and dynamic environment, the industry no longer accommodated a woman who would not be subdued. Debra Winger achieved the unimaginable just when everyone thought she would continue to struggle for her position in Hollywood. Debra Winger declared her intention to leave Hollywood in 1995, while her career was at its peak. No controversies, no scandals, and no definitive explanation. She just vanished. Why would a talented actress who had rocked Hollywood to its foundation leave at the height of her fame? Was this the defiance of a renegade who refused to be subdued, or the demise of a woman rejected by Hollywood? Come on over to the next section, as we learn the startling reality of her choice. Actress Debra Winger was more than just a fiercely independent character. Her journey in real life was just as turbulent. The two radically different stages of her life were precisely reflected in her two marriages, one of which was a flurry of passion and heartache and the other a unique haven of enduring tranquility. She and Timothy Hutton's relationship went beyond the typical Hollywood romance. It was a sequence of destined meetings, electrifying moments, and unavoidable breakdown. When Winger switched on the television in 1981, her career was booming after the success of Urban Cowboy, and she noticed a young, energetic man accepting an Oscar for Ordinary People, 1980. That was Timothy Hutton, who was just 20 years old. She felt an irresistible draw toward him in that moment. However, she was unaware that years would pass before their paths actually coincided. When they were both being considered for parts in the movie Roadshow in 1983, they first crossed paths. An enormous energy rushed between them as soon as their eyes met, a connection so strong that it made them both uneasy. After 6 hours of nonstop conversation, they avoided one another. At Hollywood gatherings, fate would reunite them every 6 months. Every time, sparks would fly and then immediately disappear. They acted like two magnets, sometimes resisting one another totally and other times being drawn together with an incredible force. On New Year's Eve 1986, when Winger was hosting the Farm Aid charity event and Hutton was a guest, fate finally got in the way. They stopped running this time. They were married 3 months later, assuming they had discovered it forever. However, tragedy struck on their wedding night just when happiness appeared to be within reach. Following their marriage, Winger fell pregnant right away, but she miscarried soon after. She fell into a deep hole of grief after experiencing the exhilaration of newfound love. She will always carry an emotional scar from this loss in addition to the physical pain. Soon after, she got pregnant once more, and in 1987, she gave birth to their son, Noah Hutton. However, their marriage was not saved even by the presence of a child. Winger and Hutton appeared to be the ideal pair at first glance. However, fissures had already started to appear beneath the surface. Despite their love for one another, they were too unlike. Hutton was quiet and delicate, Winger was wildfire. In contrast to Hutton, who yearned for a stability she could never offer, she was fearless, impetuous, and unwilling to be restrained. Winger's grandmother, a devoted Orthodox Jew, disowned her for marrying someone who wasn't a member of their faith, which made matters worse. Her family's disapproval only served to further derail her marriage. She and Hutton split up in 1988. They formally divorced 2 years later. But they never turned against one another. They were able to sit together once more 10 years after their breakup. Winger even invited Hutton and her new husband to join her for Thanksgiving dinner. Winger lost faith in intense, ardent love following his turbulent marriage to Timothy Hutton. Arliss Howard provided her with the additional, long-lasting thing she needed. On the set of 1993's Wilder Napalm, they first met. It was a silent agreement between two individuals who had had enough of life. It wasn't a romantic tale or a lightning strike. Howard had something that no one else could provide Winger, even though he wasn't a young prodigy like Hutton or a superstar like Richard Gere. Come. Gideon Babe Ruth Howard, their son, was born a year after their 1996 marriage. Winger assisted in raising Howard's son from a prior marriage as her own. In contrast to her first marriage, which was characterized by powerful emotions that destroyed everything in their path, her relationship with Howard was steady and long-lasting. Winger, however, never asserted that it was flawless. Debra Winger said in a 2008 interview that she had changed after years of struggle in her profession and personal life. She was worn out from years in the movie business. She had battled against the harsh realities of Hollywood's treatment of women in addition to directors, producers, and co-stars. She knew she couldn't fight indefinitely, but she also refused to accept drab, lifeless roles. "I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. If I'm not excited, I'd rather do nothing at all." Her on-set clashes with Richard Gere, Shirley MacLaine, and even powerful directors had given her a reputation as difficult to work with. But Winger never cared about pleasing others. She only wanted to make meaningful films. However, by the mid-90s, the roles offered to her became uninspired, repetitive, predictable, lacking the challenge she craved. Hollywood's pressures played a part, but the deeper reason lay within her personal life. After her failed marriage with Hutton, she realized she no longer wanted to chase things that didn't bring her happiness. When she met Howard, she saw another path, a life where she didn't have to fight every day to prove herself. In 1995, during a trip to Ireland with Howard, she stood in the middle of a vast green field and realized she no longer wanted to be an actress. No grand plan, no dramatic announcement, just a quiet decision. "I'm done. I'm not making movies anymore." When she returned to the US, Winger walked away from Hollywood completely. No farewell parties, no press releases, not a single headline about her retirement. She and Howard moved to a farm in New York, far from the spotlight. There, she found something she had never known before. Mornings without early call times, afternoons spent gardening, evenings with her family uninterrupted by work calls. Many people couldn't understand her decision. A three-time Oscar nominee, a gifted actress at the height of her career, leaving Hollywood without scandal, without controversy. But to Winger, it didn't matter. "I realized I don't need Hollywood to know who I am." But was this truly the end of Debra Winger's story in cinema, or just the calm before the storm? Stay with us as we uncover how her life changed after leaving Hollywood. After years of fighting like a true warrior, had she finally been worn down by the lonely battle, one where she stood alone against all of Hollywood? Debra Winger may have left the silver screen, but her impact remains deeply embedded in the hearts of her fans and the very fabric of Hollywood. She wasn't just a gifted actress, she was a symbol of strength, individuality, and defiance. When today's actresses fight for equal pay, resist being typecast into stereotypical roles, or speak out against the injustices of the film industry, they are walking a path Winger paved decades ago. In the 1980s and 90s Hollywood, survival required more than just talent, it demanded obedience. But Winger never accepted that. She rejected uninspired scripts, openly challenged directors and producers who belittled actresses, and fought for respect for women in the industry. Let's not forget, this was an era when female actors could be easily replaced if they caused problems. Yet Winger never hesitated to call out powerful figures, from director Taylor Hackford to producer Don Simpson, who had publicly criticized her appearance, claiming she was not attractive enough for lead roles. She didn't just stand up for herself, she stood up for the actresses who came after her, ensuring they wouldn't have to endure the same discrimination she did. Today, when actresses like Meryl Streep, Jennifer Lawrence, or Jessica Chastain speak out against gender bias and fight for women's rights in Hollywood, they are continuing the battle Winger started over 30 years ago. She may no longer be a constant presence on screen, but her influence on the next generation of actresses is undeniable. She was among the first to actively turn down lucrative yet superficial roles, even when they promised fame and fortune. She taught actresses that they had the right to choose rather than accept just any script to sustain their careers. She also dared to demand fair treatment for herself, even if it meant going head-to-head with Hollywood's power structure. When Jennifer Lawrence fought for equal pay, or when Scarlett Johansson sued Disney for breach of contract, they carried Winger's fearless spirit, the courage to stand up, even if it meant going against the entire industry. More than that, Winger helped dismantle Hollywood's rigid mold of the perfect female star. In the 1980s, the industry tried to confine women to specific archetypes, sexy, demure and compliant. But Winger proved that an actress could be bold, sharp-edged and still successful. Her fierce presence and emotionally charged performances inspired many actresses who followed. Anne Hathaway, Hilary Swank and Cate Blanchett have all credited Winger as a major influence on their decision to pursue acting. For years, Winger's disappearance from the screen remained one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. But rather than letting that silence become the end of her story, she unintentionally became a symbol of a larger issue: Hollywood's systemic gender bias. In 2002, actress Rosanna Arquette directed the documentary Searching for Debra Winger, not just to uncover why Winger left Hollywood, but to expose how the industry treats women, especially once they pass. The film was a revelation, featuring Jane Fonda, Whoopi Goldberg, Sharon Stone, Daryl Hannah, and other legendary actresses candidly discussing how Hollywood cast them aside once they were no longer young. It became a powerful indictment of the industry's ingrained sexism and ageism. Winger herself didn't make the documentary, but her name became a symbol for an entire generation of women whom Hollywood underestimated, simply because they dared to step outside the mold the industry had imposed on them. Debra Winger was never a conventional Hollywood actress. She never tried to be perfect, never shied away from conflict, and never needed Hollywood's approval. But it was precisely this defiance that made her an icon, a powerful voice for female freedom in the arts. Today, when actresses fight for their rights, when they challenge the outdated standards set by Hollywood, they are following the trail Winger blazed. She may have walked away from Hollywood, but Hollywood will never forget her. As she approaches 70, Debra Winger is no longer a constant presence in the media, but whenever she reappears, she never fails to surprise the public. In 2024, at the premiere of Drive Away Dolls in New York, audiences barely recognized her. It was still Debra Winger, but not the Hollywood sex symbol she once was. She arrived with her natural silver curls, a stark contrast to the sleek polished hairstyles of her golden years. Her fashion had also completely transformed. She wore a black blazer, loose-fitting trousers, a blue button-up shirt, and a patterned scarf. Gone were the glamorous gowns, the elaborate makeup. Her face was almost bare, carrying the soft imprints of time, yet exuding a serene and effortless confidence. Winger frequently wears thick-framed glasses, adding to her intellectual, world-weary aura, standing in stark contrast to many of her contemporaries who still cling to past glories. At 69, she doesn't chase youth, she embraces time gracefully, stepping into a new chapter of life with ease. Yet Winger has never truly left the arts. While she no longer appears in Hollywood blockbusters, her love for acting remains alive through independent projects in television. Since 2016, she has made a striking return as Maggie Bennett in Netflix's The Ranch, a deeply layered, emotionally rich character. She continued her television journey with roles in Mr. Corman, 2021, on Apple TV Plus and Acute Used, 2023, on Fox. Though she has steered clear of high-profile projects, every role she takes on is marked by depth and authenticity. Beyond television, Winger has also left her mark on notable independent films. The Lovers, 2017, saw her in a lead role filled with emotional complexity, portraying a middle-aged woman navigating the turmoil of marriage while rediscovering love. In Kajillionaire 2020, a film by Miranda July, she once again demonstrated her versatility, playing a con artist in an eccentric family of criminals. She has even ventured into animation, lending her voice to Ultra City Smith's 2021 and explored dark comedy in the Amazon series Patriot 2018 to 2019, proving her adaptability across genres. Though she no longer dominates the box office, Winger maintains the essence of a true actress, choosing roles based on meaning rather than fame. Debra Winger's recent resurgence proves that she has never lost her allure or talent. She no longer seeks validation from Hollywood, but whenever she re-emerges, she commands attention. Fame may be fleeting, beauty may fade, but Winger's strength and independence remain undeniable. She may no longer be the dazzling star of the silver screen, but to those who truly understand her, Debra Winger is still an icon, a woman of fierce individuality, unwavering resilience, and a life defined entirely on her own terms. Debra Winger was not just a talented actress. She was a symbol of rebellion and resilience. She refused to compromise, never bowed to Hollywood's rules, but it was this very defiance that made her an outsider. For years, she fought for her place, clung fiercely to her craft, but in the end, she was the one who walked away. Does success sometimes require sacrificing one's ego? Or was it her unyielding nature, her unwillingness to conform that forced her to retreat? Some choose to adapt to survive, to mold themselves to fit the system. But Debra Winger was not one of them. She left when she no longer saw value in the roles offered to her, when Hollywood no longer gave her what she craved. Was that a sacrifice? Or a victory? A loss? Or a choice to live on her own terms? Hollywood may have moved on from Debra Winger, but the films she left behind, the battles she fought, will forever remain part of its history. Was she a rebel or simply a woman who dared to be true to herself? What do you think about Debra Winger? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join us in uncovering more fascinating stories about Hollywood legends.